I think one of the mistakes that people make, or one of the fears they have about how would you run such a big operation, or let me just tell you flat out, it's 1,000 times easier to manage 1,000 people than to manage 5 people.
Really? Why is that?
Because when you have 5 people, it's like every person thinks they're very important, and you also can't layer it. You can't have supervisors. You typically don't have as much cash or to hire the best. When you have 1,000 people working for you, and you're running a really good business, you're making a lot of money, you can afford to pay awesome people. And there's a certain energy that develops in that crowd mentality that allows you to create a culture. You can't create a culture with 3 or 4 people. You can create a culture with 100 people or better yet 1,000 people. So it's very difficult to be small. It's much easier to be big. It's kind of easy to be somewhere in the middle, but the worst thing to be doing is contracting or staying still. As a sales organization, you need to be growing or you're basically dying. That's the bottom line. It is very easy to be big as a sales organization.
So here you go, Brandon. This, and I always tell salespeople this. I said, you got to be aware of the question that's going to come out of right field from an executive. And this is the question, and I role play with salespeople all the time on this. Is imagine this, right? Because you all have a targeted list of accounts.
Yep.
Hopefully, you got your top 5, right? You got your top 5 dream corporations you want to do business with, whether they're
have a list. You better have
whether they're upper tier, mid tier, lower tier, based on your marketplace. I really don't care, but you got to have your top 5 dream clients that you want to do business with. I said, let's just say that Brandon is the number 1 dude that you've been trying to do business with at ABC company for the last couple years. And finally, by some miracle, right, you got that appointment with Brandon, and Brandon's this savvy executive and so forth. And then you got to be able to answer this question. And here's the question.
I'm writing it down. I want to hear it.
And I go, you got to be prepared to answer this. If that person greets you, right, they welcome you into your office, and Brandon says, "Hey, Larry," right? "I'm so glad. I've been waiting to see you. You've been diligent. You've been persistent. I wish my salespeople were like this. But before we get going," so the executive takes control of the call, and he goes, "Before we get going, because I'm curious what you have to say and how you can help me, but what's the value? What value can you bring to my organization to help me do better business?" And then I stop. If salespeople can't answer that, they're fucking dead in the water.
Yep.
So, and that's the key is there's very few salespeople that understand the true value they bring to their clients, because it's perceived value. Because if you ever ask salespeople, especially their top 5 clients, ask them, how great of a relationship do you have with your top 5 clients? They're going to go, rock solid, man. We're partners. We're buddies, right? We're like that. And I said, well, great. Why don't you give me the phone number to Brandon so I can call Brandon right now, and let me ask him how tight you guys are.
What's the biggest thing you've learned selling at Cran? And then I want to go into what is your top sales secret. So curious, just real quick.
Yeah, the one thing that I've learned selling at Crayon is I've taken all the mistakes that I made at HubSpot, and I'm not repeating them. So don't repeat any mistakes. Some of the mistakes, some of the experiments that didn't work at HubSpot, I'm not going to tell all of them. We'll be here all day, and I could probably tell you more of them over a cocktail or something. But
top 2 mistakes.
The top 2 mistakes, I'll give you one. The top one is when interviewing, you have to set proper expectations on what the role entails. When you are a pre-Series A startup and you're hiring for sales, this is not a 9-to-5 job. This is a career. And sometimes you can say that to folks in the interview process, but you really need to document it. You really need to let them know and remind them that this is going to be more than a 9-to-5. This is going to be a career. So I've learned right away that when bringing on folks into a startup, they might have had great success at other companies, but they've also had a lot of resources. Here, I need to document them I need to remind them and document all the resources they don't have. and the fact that they'll always have an executive resource, such as myself or our CEO or CMO, to help. But some of the resources that they may have had at their other company, like a BDR or like unlimited inbound leads or something like that, just is not going to happen. So one of the biggest things that I've learned is really setting expectations about what it's like to be at a startup, and then what are the things you're going to get and not, and even have to go as far as document them. So when they do join, they're not surprised or blindsided by some of the things they're used to getting at some of their past companies.
Some startups take a rocket ship and they keep going. Others get off fast and then they crash.
Yeah, they crater.
Yeah, they crater, and some of them are not run well.
The difference is between the ones that make it and the ones that fail.
That's a good question. I think I look at like a racehorse, the jockey, and the track. If you got the right jockey and you got the right trainer and you got the right horse, if you're on the wrong track, you may not do so well. So you can have the right product at the wrong time. And I was with a couple where I call it, they were a pig's tail. They were too early, twirly. They were twirly.
Twirly. That's good. That's good.
Right, so they were too early. But if you have, so the jockey's really running things. If you got a good leader, and I see what you've done with your company, and that filters down the energy, the mission, keeping them focused, but hiring good people, let them do their job, make them accountable, pay them well, and let them have fun.
So to wrap up the secret, you have to focus on the people. You have to provide the right blueprint, which is like really the micro math, the formulas, the coaching, the roadmap to say like, okay, this is how much you want to make. This is what you have to do to hit those sales numbers. And then you said like coach on wherever they're falling short in the funnel to level them up.
Yeah, pull the lever.
And then when you talk about like empowering, because you and I, we may be like detail-oriented freaks, right? Like, how do you not jump on someone like, no, this is what you need to do? Like, how do you empower them with like the ability and freedom to like make their own decisions given the blueprint?
So, I'll answer that with two things. I do believe that there's something called will and skill issues, right? So if someone has a will issue, I can't fix that. I won't try. I'll manage them out very quickly. I'm a very honest person about that. I tell everyone in an organization. Then there's skill issue. And then when you look at a skill issue, you need to look at it two ways. Well, actually, you need to make one decision. Is this skill trainable? Yes or no? Yes, it's trainable. Is this skill trainable within the time frame that's not detrimental to the rest of the team, meaning I don't have to sink 10 hours a week to fix this skill detriment? If the answer is no, that it can be trained in a reasonable amount of time, my job as a people manager is to go in and fix that skill. And if I'm not doing that, then I suck and I shouldn't be a people manager. So I make that assessment between will and skill. Then the second thing that I really look at when I'm looking at, I'm sorry, go back to the question. I got off track. I apologize.
Just how you empower people so that they maximize their success without like trying to tell them, like without micromanaging.
Absolutely.
I think because this is something that I'm trying to work on as a leader. I'm bad at it.
So the technique that I use once I decide if it's a will or a skill, because will you can't fix, get rid of it.
And will means like they're just not like putting in the work, right?
Attitude, chip on their shoulder, things that I can't fix those. Like
it's not coachable.
Break them and then they'll just rebuild, but that's very rare. Like figure out if it's a will. If they're not willing to do it the way they need to do it, and they have this chip and it has to be done their way, it's toxic to your environment because they're talking about it behind your back. Just get rid of them. If it's a skill, it's your responsibility to fix it. The second piece that, and I learned this probably about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe a little bit longer. I keep forgetting how long I've been doing this now, but there's this technique called questioning for self-discovery. And I've kind of coined it seeking to understand now after Shamrat at Clary, his term, he called it seeking to understand. But the way that I do is I ask my people questions until the data becomes their own. Instead of saying, hey, you need to do X, Y, and Z. Everyone knows what they need to do. What you need to do is make it relative to them. And so I'll ask questions. if you were in my shoes and this was the performance, what would be the outcome that you would take? What would you do next? And what I do is start getting them to self-realize the things that they need to change, and they want to be more empowered to do it, because nothing's worse than telling yourself you suck at something. Someone else tells you to suck, you think of justification why they're wrong. When you tell yourself you suck, you fix it. And so that's what I'm trying to get them to do, is realize that they need to fix something internal to them that I can't really fix. Or they need to hold themselves. Actually, it's not even about fixing, it's about accountability. I need them to get to a level where they're holding themselves accountable for their own outputs versus me having to hold them accountable. And once you can get them to that point, not only do you have them completely empowered, but you're also growing your next bench of leadership as well.